Hey everyone! So, in the last video I talked about doing a Guardian PvP video for guides about builds and stuff, and today is the day that I start doing those. So I'll be doing these kinds of videos for a while now, the next couple weeks. I'll be also doing a few other videos, but these are the main videos I wanted to get out because I kind of wanted to... While I made those videos, if you remember back like a month ago, I made PvP guide videos for Guardian Ellie. Now they're kind of obsolete because of specializations, and so now I'm coming back to show you all the different types of builds I've kind of come up with, seen, and kind of experienced all the different kind of variations on them. I'm going to break it down into a couple things. So Guardian we'll be going over today, and these builds are going to be broken up into Medi and Bunker. And yes, Bunker is back. I'm pretty happy about that, which is awesome. But it's very specific. I have actually a very specific build that I came up with that works very well. I will hopefully have some footage, should have some footage in the background showing you what's going on, how it works, you know, what's the different things. And also an extra thing about this video is also that I got some comments saying that I should show some very specific tricks and things on how to play Guardian, and some specific combat things that you should do, and I'm going to add that in. I'm actually going to explain that after I explain everything else. I'll be going over the traits, or not the traits, specializations, all the weapons, amulets, rune sigils, everything that you need to know about Mediguard, Bunker Guard, all of that. So let's get started with the specializations. So we know we can have 3 specializations, and we have a very good, and actually, to be honest, the choices we have are pretty good. However, there are a few things that you need to have. First thing is you need to have the Valor specialization, and I'm going to talk about that specifically because it has 2 traits in it that make it amazing and make Mediguard what Mediguard is. So first we have obviously the Monk's Focus, which is the key trait that makes Mediguard very powerful. The healing, it reduces recharge on all your meditation skills, gives fury to everyone and yourself. So that's your Grandmaster trait that makes it important. And secondly, is this one, Smiter's Boon. This is amazing. It's probably my favorite trait over all of the traits in each specialization. It's really freaking cool because with this trait, this means that when you heal, you'll never have poison on you. You absolutely never have any poison on you ever when you heal. So I want to go over those specifically because those are 2 key ones. Now, I'd like to move away from Valor, and we'll start with Radiance. So we're going Radiance, Valor, and Virtues. And I'll explain why in a second. So with Radiance, we have our 3 minor traits, which kind of set the theme of the specialization. So we have Blind, Justice is Blind, which gives blindness on using our F1 skill. We have Renewed Justice. We get our Virtue of Justice completely recharged when we kill a foe, which means when we stomp someone. And then we get our third one, which is our attacks against burning foes have an increased chance to critically hit. So that all kind of is a theme around the F1 skill, which means we're burning people, we're blinding them, and we are constantly doing that over and over again. So I'm taking the top 3 traits, because they all amplify. The first one amplifies our damage because it gives us fury whenever we hit someone with 3 stacks of burning or more. And that kind of stacks on our fury that we get from our meditations. You could choose right hand strength if you wanted to, but I don't use sword a lot, so it's not really it's kind of half effective because you're not really bringing it for the reduced recharge. You're bringing it for that increased 15%. And Healer's Retribution is not really that great with this build. Next one, our Master trait, is Wrath of Justice. This is amazing. And I'll tell you why, because it gives us just that much more immobilized. We already have immobilized from Scepter, which is what our second weapon set will be. And we'll get immobilized from this whenever we trigger our Justice of active effect. So when we hit F1 and we hit someone and they start taking that burning damage, they are immediately immobilized by the Signet of Wrath that is casted. You could bring Radiant Fire if you're using Torch, but I don't really use Torch because while it does do a lot of damage, you are losing some effective burst combos with it. The other one, Retribution, is okay if you really, you do have a good uptime of retaliation, so if you wanted to bring this instead of Wrath of Justice, that's fine. But Wrath of Justice, I'm really because it also has 1200 range, and that also, like, if you hit someone with your scepter, that means it's just another immobilize. So you could do double immobilize if you wanted to with your number 3 skill on the scepter. So that kind of synergizes with some things. It also gives you a nice soft CC, which the Guardian is needed some more of. And our Grandmaster is Amplified Wrath. Now, I only take this is because this is the better option of the 3. The only reason I don't take Perfect Inscriptions, which is the one I would prefer to take, is because the Perfect Inscriptions does not affect the Wrath of Justice. So it doesn't affect the Signet of Wrath we cast with the Wrath of Justice. And I've tested it, it does not. So if I click it, I'll select it, and it doesn't reduce the cooldown, it doesn't increase the effectiveness of the Wrath of Justice at all, which sucks because it'd be really cool if it did. That'd be a cool synergy that they have. I will probably post a forum post about this somewhere, or I'll complain about it here, and hopefully Renate says, oh wow, that probably should have happened. Because I know that other traits in other professions that are similar to these two synergize, and I wish that these did. The other one, Radiant Retaliation, we're not running a Condi build, and no one should run a Condi build. Don't think you could run a Condi build, so don't run this. So Amplified Wrath for the increased burning damage. So now we'll move on to Valor. Now the key specialization that gives us Mediguard powers. So our minors are Valor's Defense, Courageous Return, and Might of the Protector. Another kind of thing what's going on with these two, this has some sort of synergy with Radiance, because when we kill someone, we down them and stomp them, we regain our F1. If we are revived, or when we rally someone, we gain our Virtue of Courage back. So that's kind of useful if you want to spend the time reviving people. Not really I'm doing much of that because you're going to be running around killing people, but if you do, you get an extra bonus. And the Might of Protector is kind of cool. You're not going to be using Aegis a whole lot. You're just using it for specific things, so that Might is just a little bit beneficial. And the Valor's Defense is nice. So, the first trait, Smiter's Boon, which gives us our extra Smite condition. Not only is it a Condi Cleanse, it's extra damage, and on top of that, it adds 2,000, almost 2,000 more healing to your heal. So that's massive healing you get from just your shelter. So if you look at shelter, we have 4,555. We'll be healing for over 6,000. So that's almost close. That's about 4,000. About 2,000 less than our Signet heal, which is awesome. And along with the furry gain and everything. You could take Strength of the Fallen if you wanted to, for the lose condition, the condition removal every 10 seconds, but it doesn't really work because if you're down, it's really, you're gonna die. And the Focus Mastery, it would be okay. You can take that if you really don't like Smiter's Boon, that's fine. You can take Focus Mastery, it reduces your recharge and all your focus skills, which was we are using Focus as our offhand with Scepter, and it gives you some protection as well. A good alternative if you want to. Strength in numbers for our master trait, really only because it's the best option of the 3. Stalwart Defender, we're not using a shield, and communal defenses I do not like this trait at all. It doesn't really do much for us. We're not really running a supportive build, although we do give boons out to people. We're not really looking to give Aegis to everyone, so. And then, like I said before, Grandmaster is Monk's Focus. We're not running any sort of tanky healy build, so that's why we're not taking altruistic healing. And Retributive Armor is kind of meh. Alright, now on to the last one, Virtues. I'm kind of going through these quickly because I also want to explain some other alternative choices if you want, which are not as, you could say aren't as good, but they're kind of interesting and fun to play around with. But this is my setup that I use all the time. So for the Virtues line, our minor traits are Inspired Virtue, which gives us all those wonderful boons when we use our F1, 2, and 3 skills. Our Virtue of Retribution, which is we gain Retaliation when we activate a Virtue, so that kind of synergizes with the Retribution trait in Radiance, if you want to keep up your Retaliation for that increased 10% damage. Also, our Retaliation lasts longer, so that also is a benefit. And then Power of the Virtuous, we deal extra damage for every boon we have on us. And also, most importantly, it recharges our virtues faster. So they recharge 15% faster. So some extra damage dealing. Retaliation is always nice. That's the whole theme. Now, for our Adept trait. Retaliatory subconscious. I am so glad they buffed this because it is actually quite nice. Especially when you're fighting things like thieves, warriors. It makes a heck of a lot difference when you get that Aegis when you're knocked down. So like, for example, if you are, and I'll either have footage about this right now, I'll talk about it a little bit later. Say you're fighting a warrior and they use their shield bash against you and they want to go in for eviscerate. Well, they've stunned you. That means you get your Aegis, and that Aegis blocks the eviscerate, and they've used up all their adrenaline. So there you go. It's a nice little thing. It also gives us some retaliation. I actually like it a lot more than what it used to be. It just gave us retaliation back in the day, and it's a whole lot better. And actually, I think the cooldown got reduced as well. You can take Unscathed Contender for some big, huge burst damage if you're really confident in not losing your Aegis. Because Aegis gets thrown, Aegis, if you just pop it, it usually gets destroyed by some random AoE thing. If there's like a bunker guard running around with staff, then it's just going to get knocked off. So I don't take it anymore. If you really need a bursty opener with your Guardian, so like, and I'll be showing you some of those combos a little bit later. If you want to do something like that, then that's also a good pick. The Master of Consecrations, we're not using any consecrations, so that's not really usable. In the Master trade line, we'll be using Absolute Resolution for maxi Condi clear and also improved healing, passive healing, and also it's kind of a supportive thing as well because it also removes conditions from everyone else. So it's a good additional Condi cleanse along with all of our other skills that we're using the Condi cleanse stuff. We're not using Hammer. If you were using Hammer, Glacial Heart is better now, but I haven't really tested it out a whole lot. You can try it out. Tell me what you think about it. I might try it out in a different build I've been thinking of for Guardian to prepare for Dragon Hunter. So maybe that's an alternative in the future. And for the Grandmaster, we'll be using Indomitable Courage. So we'll be using Absolute Resolution and Indomitable Courage. Indomitable Courage is great because it gives us stability. It gives the midi guard stability, which it never had before, and also is another stun break. So we have exactly 3 stun breaks on our bar. We have our stun break from our F3 skill, and we'll have our stun break from Judge's Intervention and Contemplation of Purity. And so with 3 stun breaks, also stun breaks everyone else and gives everyone stability. So it's a really nice alternative stability boon application. You could use Battle Presence if you want to, but not really running any sort of supportive. And the heal from Virtue Resolve isn't that great. It's kind of like Soothing Mist on Ellie, although Soothing Mist on Ellie is better now since you have a trait that increases its healing. So actually Soothing Mist is better than Virtue Resolve for good reason, but it's not really that beneficial. And you could do Permeating Wrath, but you're not running any sort of big, huge burning build, and you shouldn't be, so this isn't really a good alternative either. So, Indomitable Courage it is. Now that was all of the specializations for the Bodyguard. We'll move on to the PvP build for it. So, for your weapons, sigils, and runes and amulet, it's pretty much the same almost from the last video I did. On the Greatsword, we run a Greatsword Scepter focus, and on the Greatsword we'll be running Rage and Energy. The reason we run 8 Rage is because it's a really cool critical hit thing. You spin if you crit. That actually procs, you gain quickness, so it's like a big lawnmower that happens if you Whirling Wrath. Although it is kind of, it doesn't happen all the time, and sometimes it randomly happens when you're auto-attacking or putting down a symbol or something. So it's really just, it's an okay pick. It's really, there's nothing really else you could pick. I mean, you could pick something else like Renewal if you wanted some healing, or maybe a stacking one if you really wanted to, or just put Fire Air on it if you wanted to. I just like Rage. And the energy is nice because we're not, the reason I bring energy, and this is actually very important, I bring energy on the two-hander because we're not running Honor. And the reason Honor was so important before is because of this trait, Vigorous Precision. We are not gaining Vigor anymore. You could run Honor, but Honor is a completely defensive trait line. We could run it if you wanted to. There are some good things from it. I'm not really gonna go over it because I don't run Honor, but we don't run Honor, so we're not getting that extra vigor from Vigorous Precision. So that energy sigil is actually really a big key component to survival. So when you're done with your burst and staff, you've dodged, you've used up some dodges, you have that energy sigil, you've swapped the greatsword, and you've got your energy back. It's very useful. I recommend it highly. So on the scepter focus, we'll be running as our second weapon set. We're running fire and air, pretty standard, just for a bunch of damage. We'll be ranging mostly for scepter, obviously because it's a ranged weapon. However, there are some combo bursts associated with scepter focus that I will show later on. And it's sometimes hard to get off, sometimes it is. So that fire and air really help with the big, bringing the damage down on someone deal. Rune is actually quite the same. Rune of the Pack. You could use, and I've been testing this. I've been finding actually that Rune of the Pack is a good rune. It's awesome. It gives you 100 power. Actually, it gives you 175 power. It gives you 125 precision, but it doesn't give you increase in ferocity. So you could potentially bring something like Rune of the Eagle if you wanted to. If you want to bring higher ferocity, or you could do Rune of the Ogre. One of those two is a good alternative to Rune of the Pack. I've been finding that Rune of the Eagle actually is pretty decent at that kind of like final burst thing, so it brings that 7% in when they're below 50%, so it's a kind of nice damage modifier that you could bring. And so, with the specializations and all the changes came a new amulet. By now everyone's known about it. It's the Marauder amulet. It has replaced the Berserker amulet, and the reason for that is because Berserker is now only power, precision, ferocity. So this is your choice. You could go for higher power and higher ferocity. However, you're losing on a lot of health. If I swap to Berserker, my Guardian sits at 11,000 health. Now, put this into perspective. My Ellie on a Berserker amulet has a lot less, actually. It has about the same. So our Guardian and Ellie health pool is the same with our Berserker amulet. So we're very low health and we are very squishy. So if you want super high burst, lots of damage, you can go Berserker if you want to go completely YOLO style. However, when it comes to team fights and stuff, random AoEs can kill you. So bringing that Marauder's amulet is actually really nice because the vitality is just super important. You don't lose a whole lot of damage. In fact, Guardian really doesn't suffer a lot from slightly low ferocity, because our base damage, we have just such high base damage on all of our skills that compensates for that. So it's okay to bring Marauders. I suggest Marauders over Berserker just because even though we have a lot of defensive stuff, we want to be that kind of unrelenting warrior right now. I mean, when we're talking about Shiro and Revenant back in the other video, I mean, it sounds like Shiro's going to be that big unrelenting warrior, but you know, Guardian can be that too sometimes. So there you go. You have the PvP build for it and the traits. I keep saying traits, specializations, your weapon sets, sigils, runes, and amulet. The skills we'll be using for this are Shelter, Judge's Intervention, Smite Condition, and Contemplation Purity, and Renewed Focus. The same stuff we had from the last build. I'll briefly go over a few of these. The important one is Judge's Intervention. There's actually some cool tricks you can do with this, which I will also demonstrate. Contemplation and Purity. I was talking about the 3 stun breaks, so Contemplation and Purity. Judge's Intervention are both stun breaks. So with the Indomitable Courage in our Virtue trait line, or our Specialization line, it gives this a stun break. So a Virtue of Courage stun break. So that's 3 stun breaks along with stability. Awesome. Why would you not take something like this for a super bursty class? And so that was Mediguard. So I'm going to go over some of the few tricks and things you can do with Mediguard. So for Guardian Mediguard in specific, there are a few things you can do that kind of up your up your game a little bit. One of the things is teleporting and skill canceling. So, and blinding, blocking, skill canceling, and teleporting. So when I'm talking about teleporting, for instance, when you use a teleport in this game, if it requires you to channel it. So if you, for example, if I cast a skill and there's a little bar that goes across the screen above my health bar, that means I'm channeling a skill. And so that means I can't cast anything during that time. If it's instant, for example, Judge's Intervention, which has no cast time, I can be channeling a skill and casting Judge's Intervention at the same time. So a few examples of this are your number 2 skill on the Greatsword, which is your Whirling Wrath. You can Whirling Wrath, which is a channel, and then Judge's Intervention onto someone for like that big kind of surprise, I'm here kind of damage. It's not, I mean, it doesn't increase your damage, but increases your mobility and also increases that surprise factor that comes from any guard, just teleporting onto someone and just like, boom, I'm here, surprise, motherfuckers, kind of deal. Another good combo is using your number 3, your Leap of Faith with Judge's Intervention, gives you some extra gap closing. So you're adding on, your Judge's Intervention is 1200 range, and your Leap of Faith is 600. So you're basically going 1800 range while doing this, and you'll be doing that blind and that damage at the same time. The other combo, which is probably my favorite, is using the Binding Blade and the Judge's Intervention. So Binding Blade is where you spin around and you throw these kind of mystical spirit blades out that attach themselves to enemies, and you can actually, they do some damage over time, but you can activate the skill again and pull them towards you. It's kind of your CC on the Greatsword. And so it's only 600 range, and sometimes it's very noticeable. So if you want to surprise someone, if you're behind them or you're coming into a team fight, you can surprise them by casting Blinding Blades and then teleporting using Judge's Intervention as you're casting it to attach that blade immediately. And that way that it's attached to them, it's almost always guaranteed to land unless you're someone who's really good at dodging, like really good at telegraphing everything. So you'll most likely land it on most people. That's a good trick to do. The other thing was the skill canceling. This applies mostly to Binding Blades because you can cast Binding Blades, and before it even starts going, you can cancel it to get a small cooldown, which is like 3 seconds. So it considers that the skill hasn't been casted. It's just been, you've accidentally pressed the button, and it's like, oh, it just give you a 3-second cooldown. The reason that this is important is because a lot of the Guardian's Greatsword skills are very big and noticeable and easily telegraphed. And when I mean telegraphed, people can tell what's going on and they can dodge it. So if you're just going to use Binding Blades normally, you can trick people into thinking that you're casting it, and you can pull out an evade from them, so you can make them use their endurance. So you're casting Binding Blade, and as soon as you like start to turn, if you can cancel it using escape or sheathing your weapon, whatever button you have that bound to. You can do that, and then they will, hopefully the enemy will, your opponent will just dodge and use up their endurance, waste a dodge on nothing. And then you can even try that again, and they'll think, oh, well, they didn't, then you can try to do Binding Blades again, and you'll hopefully hit them with it, bring in the pull, do a bunch of damage. The other two things, and this is these are actually probably the two most important things that have to go with Guardian. This applies to Bunker and for Mediguard. A little less for Bunker because we won't be blinding people, but especially for Medi because we'll be blinding and blocking. Using your F1 skills, your F skills are key to succeeding as a Guardian. And what I mean by that is your F1 skill is an AoE blind. It blinds up to 5 people. That means you can blind anyone you want and avoid any large burst attack. And let me give you some examples. For say you're fighting a warrior, like I said before, and they decide to stun you, and they're about to come in with a big, huge eviscerate. So eviscerate's a high damage attack, and it's very easily telegraphed. You could probably dodge it if you want to. But say you get stunned, and you want to use a stun break for this. You want to save your stun breaks for something else, or you don't want to use your Contemplation of Purity in case you're also fighting someone else in Necro. You want to save the Con Declare, whatever reason. You don't want to use a big, huge skill to avoid this eviscerate. What you do is, after he's stunned you, you can use your virtues while stunned. So you can use your Virtue of Justice to blind him as he's casting eviscerate, and you'll miss. You won't take any damage. He'll use all of his adrenaline, and you're safe. You have successfully negated a huge attack from someone, and probably will win the fight. Using that blind effectively is key and probably the most important thing a Guardian could ever learn to do. It takes a long time to know what to do, what to use it on, when to use it, but if you practice, it'll become so important, and it will really separate those mediocre Guardians from the amazing Guardians. The second one is Virtue of Courage. This actually has the same application as your blind, except it's on a longer cooldown. You might not necessarily want to use a block an Aegis to block someone's attack, but if you have to, then that's what you've got to do. Same principle, except this time instead of a warrior, we'll talk about a thief. So for example, if a thief decides to stealth and you know he's gonna come for a backstab, you're like, okay, I'll pop my Aegis. And Aegis is a little bit less of an effect on thieves than blind, because if you hit them, they'll just still be in stealth. They'll try to spam one on you, try to get that backstab. What you can do is you can just hit your Aegis. Once you see that block word, so whenever someone blocks you, you'll see a little like text pop up, block. When that happens and the thief is behind you, just dodge. You can just dodge, get out of the way, and their stealth should come out. Their stealth should run out. Same thing with the blind. Also works. The blind works a little bit better because it can affect them from a larger range. And some other reasons, the blind is usually on a lower cooldown than the Virtue of Courage, so it's more preferable to use the blind. Same principle though. And those two things can be used to negate a lot of hard-hitting things. If you don't want to get hit by something specific, you can use those things to your advantage. And so there you go. You can fiddle around with them. If you have builds ideas for me to try out, please put them in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. I can try them out. If you have comments, feedback, criticisms, put them all up there. Give me all that feedback. Feedback is great. And try out these builds. Tell me how they do. You test them out. Tell me what it feels like. I want to know what you guys are playing. Hopefully I put enough in-game footage of things demonstrating some cool tricks and stuff. I might put an effort to do that in all of my videos next time. So hope you enjoyed the builds. Hope you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!